It's big, bright, beautiful, and 8K, except for 8K is not the point. So if 8K isn't the point, then what is? Welcome back, everyone. I'm Caleb Dennison, and today we're finally reviewing the Sony Z8H 8K LED TV, a TV which, by way of your comments in the comments section, I feel like maybe you thought I forgot about this TV. I absolutely did not. I had a few things I wanted to work out with Sony before we did it, so I got this right. And if I get this video right, by the end, you're gonna understand why this TV is worth buying, even though 8K has nothing to do with it. But before we do that, do me a favor and slap a like on this video. It helps keep this channel successful. Also, nail that subscribe button while you're at it, because I can't believe that like over 90% of you watching right now not subscribed. So hit that subscribe button. Now, let's dig into this TV. We start the premium theme with the TV's design, which tends to follow function a little bit more than form. That isn't to say that it's not an attractive TV, it absolutely is, and it's built of premium materials as well. It's just got this industrial kind of vibe going on. I do like the fact that it is so low slung, so it leaves very little space between your cabinet and the bottom border of the TV. Although I am a little concerned that at this size, fitting it on an entertainment stand could be a challenge since those feet are spread so wide apart. You'll definitely need to have a big media stand like we do if you're going to stand mount it. I do want to call attention specifically to the television's frame. That is the metal border that goes along the outside. That isn't just for good looks, it does look good, but it's also playing into the audio aspect of this TV. So how about that sound? You're going to spend this much money on a TV, you want it to sound pretty good too, and this TV absolutely does that. It does it in a couple of different ways. One, if you wanted this TV to act as the center channel of a home theater system, you can absolutely connect it directly to your AV receiver, and it'll do that. There's a couple of little speaker binding posts on the back, which is a clever little trick. But if you want to use the TV's onboard sound, you're definitely getting a premium experience there as well. It has a big, full, rich sound, but I think the most dazzling part of the TV sound is how it handles sound effects. So the TV is actually using its frame as a sort of transducer or speaker to create sound, and that helps place objects of sound outside the borders of the TV a little bit, which gives it a really interesting feel. You also get the sense that certain sound objects are coming from the screen itself, even though they actually aren't. Another feature that makes this TV premium is the built-in ATSC 3.0 tuner. Now, if you're not familiar, that is the new over-the-air broadcast standard. It's being called Next Gen TV because that's a lot sexier than ATSC 3.0. The point is that the promise would be the potential for 4K to be delivered over the air. But as we're seeing here in Portland, we do have some ATSC 3.0 broadcasts here. That's not what we're getting. So when we ran our channel search, it came up with about 25 to 30 more channels than we normally have in this market. Those are all new ATSC 3.0 channels, and you can see that we might have an 8.1 or an 8.2 like you're used to, but now we also have an 8.10 and an 8.20. These are those next-gen TV channels, and we're not getting anything in 4K. I do feel like the quality is better than the standard channel, but what we're seeing is a bunch of extra channels, not just one new 4K channel. And whether it's actually worth watching will depend on your market, because right now, right here, what we're mostly getting is infomercials and spaghetti westerns. Now let's talk about picture quality. And if I had to pick one word to describe this TV's picture, it would be striking. The intense brightness of HDR highlights is really, really impressive. It just leaps out at you. And of course, this TV also maintains very good black levels, and it mitigates blooming to a great degree. It's how this TV does that that I find the most interesting. So if you were to ask Sony how many local dimming zones its TV has, they won't tell you. And they won't tell you because they feel like that's a distraction from the fact that they employ some pretty magical backlighting technology to basically use fewer zones but still maintain more control. And that's absolutely true. We've seen that in the past where there aren't a whole lot of zones in the TV, but still they somehow manage the backlight so that they can control the brightness, put it where they want it, and not have it bleed out into darker areas of the screen. Now we can use test patterns to check this, and we have, but let me show you something interesting here. So I'm gonna pull up this white dots test pattern on the Spears and Munsell disc, and what you'll notice is that you'll see white dots all over the screen initially, and then it's going to reduce just down to the lower left-hand corner. And the reason you see them there is because of that bright pause logo. Once it goes away, so do the dots. Now they're actually being produced right now, but because they are such low luminance, it's kind of hard for you to see on our camera. So what does that actually mean? Well, I think it's a really good example of how a test pattern doesn't tell the whole story. This TV relies heavily on the information it's getting from its video signal. It's analyzing that video signal and then using that information to put a beautiful image up on the screen. A simple test pattern like this is kind of a trick for a TV. I think what's important is what we witness with the content itself. So in these images, what you have are very bright objects on black backgrounds. And what we see is not a lot of blooming around those bright objects. The blacks are maintained. They're very deep and inky, but the bright objects are extremely bright. And I think that's what really impresses me most about this TV is that it can do such extreme brightness while also maintaining those blacks. I mean, that's a real feat of engineering. So with 2500 nits on tap for peak HDR highlights, I think we've established the TV has the contrast to really bring HDR home. But that also extends into color. In order for you to have really impressive HDR color, you need to be able to cover the color range. And this TV can absolutely do that. First of all, straight out of the box in the cinema preset, the color accuracy is spot on. You don't really need to make any adjustments there. But then as you get into HDR and those colors start getting brighter, there's an opportunity for those to wash out a little bit. But this TV absolutely does not do that. So you get that vibrancy along with the deep richness of color saturation. Now let's talk about motion handling. And in true Sony style, 24 frame per second movies look super smooth, almost no judder whatsoever. And if you take a look at this windmill segment of the Spears and Munsell disc, this is a pattern that we've seen wreck a lot of TVs. It's just super stuttery, but the Sony can actually smooth it out fairly well. Now, if we throw a really tough test pattern up like this one, you can see that it's having a really tough time. But this is where I can go into the picture settings and turn motion flow to auto, and it smooths a bunch of that stuff out. Now, I would not necessarily want this turned on while I was watching movies because I fear that it's going to bring a little bit of that soap opera effect into play, but it's perfectly fine for almost all other types of content. And it really does make a big difference in terms of smoothing out fast-moving objects and slow pans like this. There is one area that this TV seems to be struggling with, and I'm not 100% certain why. I suspect it might have to do with upscaling, but let me show you a few different pictures here. So if you look at the center of this flower where there's a lot of fine detail, there's a little bit of a shimmer effect happening. You see it in this butterfly's wings as well, but where we really see it is in the feathers of these birds. When they're still, it's not that big of a deal, but when they move, we get a kind of strobing effect. It's almost like a shimmer, like I said before, or a flashing. And while I'd like to say that this is not the kind of content that most people watch, I have seen it in other areas. So if we go into this flyover of New York, you'll notice sort of a moire effect in some of the buildings with really tight lines, really tight grid patterns. It tends to shimmer there as well. So I have to think that the job of upscaling content in real time from 4K to 8K, that's boosting up to 33 million pixels that need to be filled, that's got to be a tough job. And even though Sony's processor is super powerful, I have to wonder if it's just too taxing a job to pull something off like this. Now let's talk about gaming. Gaming is fun on this TV. It looks very good. You can get 4K 60 with HDR. Right now, variable refresh rate doesn't look like it's a thing, although I know that Sony is trying to work on that. I did run into a little bit of a problem plugging into HDMI 4. That is the port that is labeled as 8K or 4K 120. And when I did that, the Sony PlayStation didn't want to turn on HDR unless we bounced the resolution down to 1080p. I've got a question into Sony about why that might be, but I think they're related issues. Sony has told me they're going to issue a firmware update for this TV, which should fix those issues. And you know what? That's a story that I'm hearing from almost every TV manufacturer this year as they basically kind of work out the kinks with HDMI 2.1 features and these new game consoles. But I have to say, playing games on a TV this big with this kind of resolution and this kind of HDR punch is not only fun, it's beautiful. So looking back on this review, one thing that I haven't talked a whole lot about is 8K resolution. And that's because you don't buy this TV for its 8K resolution. You buy this 8K TV because it's got all the premium stuff that you want built into it. Premium design, premium sound, premium tuner, premium picture quality, and a pretty premium gaming experience as well. If you want the best that Sony has to offer, you have to buy an 8K TV to get it. And Sony's not the only brand doing this. We've seen other manufacturers do this as well, where they're taking all of their best features and performance and routing it up into an 8K TV. So like it or not, if you want the best, you're gonna start finding this in 8K TVs. And I think that's gonna be doubly true in 2021. But where the Z8H comes in is absolutely premium performance at every turn. It is a wonderful TV. You have to buy 8K to get it, but it's absolutely worth the price. Thanks as always for watching, everyone. What do you think about all the premium stuff going into the 8K TVs these days? Leave me a comment down below, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and here's 2 other videos that I think you'll like.